That's exactly what I'm thinking, I'm not gonna lie. What? All right, that's blowing my mind. Oh my gosh. Traveling how? Like with the bus? What is up? Welcome back. Today I'm reacting to a video titled Why Europe is Insanely Well Designed. I've heard that, but I need to know the history and a few details behind it, and so that's why I clicked on the video. What's up? If you haven't met me yet, my name is Aaron, and this is Aaron Arnold Reacts. Through this channel, I'm discovering everything about Europe, the people, the culture, the sports, food, history, anything you can imagine. The goal of this channel is to have fun together, to laugh together, and to learn together. So if you want to do all those things, I post videos every single day, so you're going to keep seeing me around. So make sure to hit like and subscribe. And now let's see how well designed Europe really is.
Indicate the presence of a train line, and as you can see, it's very dense. There are hardly any spaces where there isn't any coverage for railways. Now, if we compare this to a map of railroad tracks in the US, it's a different story. While parts of the US have some good mass transit, there are large areas of the country which isn't covered by Amtrak, the nation's largest passenger railroad service. But let me show you another map, this time of high-speed rail in Europe. Now obviously, high-speed railways aren't going to be as common as regular speed railways, as they require excellent design, strict planning, and massive investment. And yet, as we can see, high-speed rail is present in Europe, which is a stark contrast to the US. As you can see—
Wait, which country has the most high-speed rail? It looked like Spain actually had a lot. I didn't even know that about Spain. They have a ton of high-speed rail. Like, what? That's news to me, but I know the US just has nothing like this.
See from this map. While the US does have some higher speed rail, like the Acela line in the northeastern corridor, it's hardly an effective map of transport solutions. And the Acela line isn't really that fast either. It can reach about 150 miles per hour, but averages less than 70. This is not the case for Europe's insanely well-designed railroad system. And you have to remember that Europe's system accomplishes this while spanning 33 different nations in a very diverse continent. And I know what you're probably thinking. This is just because Europe is smaller than the United States, which simply—
That's exactly what I'm thinking, I'm not gonna lie.
isn't true. While the European Union is smaller than the US, continental Europe has an area that is about 1.04 times as much as the US. So we can dismiss this argument that the United States can't be that well designed because it's too big. Europe simply is better designed. But if you're American, you might not understand why railroad tracks or public transport as a whole is so important. I mean, driving a car works fine, right? Well, no, and Europe showcases why a primary focus on private transportation is so detrimental to a well-functioning transit system. Look at these maps. They show the US road network versus the EU's. And as you can see, the EU's road network is not nearly as impressive as the US's. And yet, when you look at some of the most congested cities in the world, European countries don't feature particularly prominently in the global rankings. This is pretty shocking information because you'd assume that the country with a more expansive road network has a lot less congestion, especially considering the United States has devoted lots of time and money to their highways.
True.
So how come Europe is less congested when they have fewer roads? Well, it all comes down to disincentivizing—
This is bringing up so many questions. By the way, which city is this? That looks pretty insane. But yeah, that's actually so true. I would imagine the US to be less congested because of all the roads, but he's hinting at that it's not. That's not the reason, actually.
The use of cars, and most importantly, making an attractive alternative. Europe does this by having both private and public transportation infrastructure, which technically the US—
Wait, what's the private infrastructure? Because he's not talking about trains. Trains are all government, right? And buses. He's not talking about that. Does he just mean like people having their own cars?
has as well, it's just a lot worse. But on top of this, Europe makes it pretty expensive to buy, own and use a car. This is achieved by having high taxes on vehicles and gasoline. In fact,
is that good though? I feel like that takes away from maybe the accessibility for most people. You know, they simply have higher rates so people don't drive as much. I don't know if that's, I mean, maybe that's better for the environment and better for the country, but I don't know. It doesn't seem as friendly to the individual.
In fact, here's a map of worldwide gasoline prices. As you can see, European nations are in the top rankings, while the US lies at the bottom, charging very little. But let me be very clear, it's only a good idea to make it expensive to—
Wait, hold on a second. So Netherlands gas is 3 times the price of US? Wow.
to drive a car if you have an attractive alternative, which America doesn't, but Europe does. I mean, obviously this wouldn't work in the US with its current transportation infrastructure, but in Europe, this is a great strategy because you make the roads less congested for those who actually need them and give everyone else an affordable and efficient alternative, being Europe's amazing public transport like the trains on the railways. This is arguably the better strategy because even though the vast majority of Americans have access to vehicles at around 91% and gas is comparatively cheap, it still leaves
Wow, 91% own a car. Yeah, you really have to have a car in America. Like it's a non-negotiable.
9% who don't have access to vehicles. What are these people who can't afford a car supposed to do? I mean, sometimes public transport.
I'll answer that real quick. Most of those people live in major cities. For example, New York City has a huge population. A lot of those people don't have cars. So that makes up, I would imagine, probably at least 5% of that 5%.
Transport isn't even an option or simply too expensive for many. So you've now actively excluded those who aren't exactly the most well off from society. To make matters worse, some US cities actually got rid of their public transport to make room for more cars. I'm not joking. American streetcars like trams were actually removed to make way for bigger roads. Absolutely insane. Compare that to Oslo, Berlin, and Madrid, where discussions are underway to restrict or even exclude most cars from the city center. And let's not forget that when you have cars, you also need somewhere to park them. And this is where
that's the biggest problem. In Europe, from my understanding, you always have to pay when you park. In the US, a lot of times, there's no pay to park. It's free. If you find a spot to park, you can just park.
Things started to become rather ridiculous. You see, the United States has 2 billion parking spaces for...
What? 2 billion parking spaces? All right, that's a really cool fact. I didn't know that. For 250 million cars? Oh my gosh.
250 million cars. That's 8 parking spaces per vehicle. In Europe, it's pretty much a 1-to-1 with around 250 million public parking spaces for 300 million cars. But to emphasize the ridiculousness of this even further, the area that the US dedicates for car parking is actually larger than the area dedicated for housing people. It's honestly unbelievable that people are...
What? All right, that's blowing my mind. There's more parking space than people space for homes. That's an insane stat.
Being squeezed out of American cities due to regulators wanting to make more room for parking spaces. This simply wouldn't fly in the EU, as it has a whole policy dedicated to improving urban planning. See, the EU spent 150...
What city is that? Hold on, I gotta see that full view. That's a beautiful city. Wow, okay. Look at that roundabout. That thing is huge. How many cars wide is that? Oh my gosh. By the way, what city is this? Because that looks insanely dense.
The EU spent 115 billion euros between 2014 and 2020 to improve city design by making it smarter, greener, and more connected. Simply meaning they allocated funds to make their cities more efficient, more connected, and better for the environment. And better for the environment they really are, as the average resident in a typical Western US city, such as Los Angeles or Phoenix, contributes approximately 6 times more carbon to the atmosphere per capita than an average European city resident.
So literally the US is like one of the big factors in this terrible carbon emissions crisis. That's really, I guess it makes sense with all the cars, and that's probably why Europe too is cracking down that even more.
It's purely the result of not having effective transport solutions, which saves resources and allows people to move about efficiently. And exactly that, moving about efficiently is something most of Europe's citizens are able to do as a result of the European Union. See, most of Europe's nations are in the European Union, which gives the EU citizens a number of perks, which includes a free travel area. This has been one of the most important achievements of the EU, as it makes it possible for an EU citizen to travel freely to other EU member states.
That's so true. That's a great point. I think that's actually one of the most amazing things to me too about the EU is that they have such a nice relationship between the countries that you can freely travel. You don't have to show the passport every single time. That's actually really nice, actually, yeah.
And stay for up to 3 months. All they need...
By the way, I just realized I said actually like 5 times in the matter of 12 words, so forgive me for that.
Is a passport or even just an ID card. No visas, no trips to embassies, no form filing, just head straight over. This makes it incredibly easy to travel, study, and work in other countries and communities, and having this level of centralization is very important to good design.
By the way, throughout this video, if you don't mind dropping what cities these are, I would love to know because, like, look at this. That's a beautiful city.
as it gives the smartest people the opportunity to work where they are most useful. And since good design obviously requires a lot of complicated problem solving and planning, this is very smart. Another smart thing is the incredible biking infrastructure we see in Europe, perfectly illustrated by this map of bike path density.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Netherlands, look, it's just full of bikes from what I hear.
In Europe. All the purple lines are bike paths, and there's clearly a lot of them, especially towards the left side of the map, but that's just because this is the home of the Dutch, the Netherlands. Now, the funny thing is, I won't be able to compare this to a map of bike path density in the United States, because such a map hasn't been made. At least I wasn't able to find any, and I can only wonder why. But anyway, what Europe and also the European Union...
By the way, in the US, it's so dangerous to bike on the street. Just don't do it. Like, seriously, if you travel to the US, don't bike on the street. Do not bike on the street.
...has achieved is pretty remarkable, as it's hard to think of another set of such diverse countries where you would be able to travel so freely, in an efficient and inexpensive manner. I mean, you can literally get from Paris to Amsterdam, for example, in just 3 hours for around $30.
Traveling how? Like with the bus? No, not with the bus, not with the plane. Does he mean by train? That's amazing.
Imagine being able to travel all over Asia without any border crossings, checks, or visas.
Wow, that'd be pretty special.
Months at a time.
Actually, though, I kind of want that passport stamp. I'm not gonna lie.
That would be truly amazing. And let's not forget that European design has always been distinctive and very successful. In fact, the continent's history of design and interconnectedness serves as a model for the rest of the world. But even though
Oh, I've been there actually. I think that's Prague, right? Unless I'm tripping. I'm pretty sure that's Prague.
Europe and the EU are pretty great and have amazing infrastructure.
Wow, look at this city. I'm blown away, brother. I'm getting distracted, I'm not gonna lie. These cities are too beautiful. Where is this at? Where in the world is this?
They obviously aren't perfect, and I'd love to hear some of the reasons it might not be, so leave a comment down below if you have some thoughts on this. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Insane video, insane video. It's so true. Europe is just built for this infrastructure. It's built for the trains, it's built for the bikes. And it's actually interesting. I haven't heard that before, that they're thinking of getting rid of the cars in the city center. Do you know anything about that? I'm actually pretty interested to hear that, because that really brings that European classic walk the city, grab a bagel, not a bagel, grab a pastry lifestyle. It brings it to the forefront, and that makes it even more, you know, traveler friendly, family friendly. Probably makes it more safe too, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, insane video. Can't wait to explore European transportation even more and learn more about the design. I did a video recently on Berlin and learned about the design. That was insane. So yeah, check that out if you want. Anyways, I'm gonna keep exploring Europe and keep exploring with you. So I hope you will join me. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the very next video. Cheers.